Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 362nd film from 2021. It's the Dutch romantic comedy called Just Say Yes. This one is directed by Appie Boudellah and Aram van der Rest and stars Yolanthe Cabau, Huub, Smit, and Jim Bakkum. I am Jesse, and I am your host. I'm not very good with my Dutch, so apologies for some of those names. As always, this is a spoiler-filled episode, so if you haven't seen this film and you're interested in checking it out, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on, because we're going to talk about this film, Just Say Yes. And we do start off with the Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one, it's about a woman whose wedding plans fall apart. And unfortunately, her ignorant sister happens to be celebrating her engagement almost in her face, and the awkward things that can occur with that. So hopefully it intrigues you. This one's going to be a tricky one to talk about, but other than that, this is an international film, and it's been a while, I guess, since we've had an international film where it was almost impossible to find anything about how this film ended up on Netflix. It is the first Netflix original film from the Netherlands. It was originally planned for a 2020 cinematic release, but because of the COVID pandemic, it was bought and released by Netflix. That was all I could find out about it. It did hit Netflix worldwide on the 2nd of April 2021. It's filmed in the Netherlands. This only has one translation around the world, where it's not Just Say Yes. Just Say Yes is in reference to our main protagonist. She works in TV, and it's her pitch for a TV show. The title is called Just Say Yes, but in Chinese, this film is called As Long As You Want, and it also was called What About the Promised Wedding? So some interesting titles there too. Other than that, what are the critics and audiences saying about this film? On Rotten Tomatoes, it only has 2 reviews, so no consensus. They're both rotten, those reviews. The audience has it at 25%. That's on less than 50 people, though, so again, not a lot of data to use. The same with IMDb. It has 2,200 ratings. Sits at a 4.6 out of 10, so below 5, pretty low. Letterboxd sits at a 2 out of 5 on only 1,500 ratings, and it's only been logged by nearly 2,500 people, and there is nothing on Metacritic for this film. So I would say not many people have seen this. What are my early thoughts for this one? You may have already been able to pick up on my mood for this episode, but this it's not funny. The leads don't work. There's too many characters that are thrown around who add nothing to the actual story. This is a big skip for me. This film. There's not much positive to say about this film. So let's talk about the characters at least. What are the? I did say before, there's a bunch of characters that mean nothing. I'm gonna try and expand them a little bit more than maybe the film does itself. But our main protagonist is Lottie. She is this hardworking TV presenter / helper, executive, etc. Works really hard. She has this dream, I guess, of the perfect marriage with her boyfriend, who she shares the screen with, but her expectations are probably a little bit high, and things don't work out how she planned. And we see a little bit of not a love triangle, but the idea that she gets dumped on air, and it goes viral, and then this new guy comes along to work, who we'll talk about in a second, and it's those feelings backwards and forwards. I mentioned this before, I guess, in the Fast Flicks, but her sister Estelle, she is social media obsessed, and she has her head so far up her own bum that she probably wouldn't even be able to tell you anything about anyone except herself. She starts a relationship with Lottie's boss. His name's John, even though Lottie asks her not to. She fakes liking the things that he likes to try and be cool, like dogs and opera, and she's planning her own wedding without having any sort of consideration to Lottie, who has sort of been ditched and is struggling with love at this stage. We'll talk about Lottie's love interests, I guess. We have Alex. So Alex is the long-term co-worker. He's his boyfriend who doesn't really seem to care about her one little bit, to be honest. And it's surprising that she likes him as much as she does. He even says that he thinks that marriage is for the middle class, and I feel like he's only with her for either what she brings to his career on screen, and then they break up, and then he wants to get back to her because she has a makeover. So for her look. So he's not a very nice character. I guess the best character in this film is Chris, who's the other guy that rocks up. He's this new guy that comes to help at the TV station to pitch some new shows, and he helps her discover who she really is, and he decent, probably the most decent character and actor in the film, and you could see him in an American style rom-com as well, I think. I mentioned John before. That's Lottie's boss who ends up with her sister. The other characters are all like side characters that are there for laughs, I guess, but they're not really funny. The friends of both Lottie and her sister. We've got Guzley. She's this sweet, caring, desperate housewife who has this husband called Dirk, and he's useless, so she runs the family on her own, and she has nothing positive to say about getting married or having kids. I guess she's meant to be funny. Pam is this happy single person who's a teacher but hates kids and takes guys back to the classroom. A little bit weird. Then we've got Kim, who's Estelle's best friend. She just follows her around so she can be on her socials, be popular, and also ends up cheating. Well, she's not cheating, but Alex ends up with her, and everyone knows about it except Lottie. It was just all weird. And the grossest character in this film is Fritz. He's the editor-in-chief at the TV station, and he's a complete and utter sleazebag, not funny at all, and he will definitely appear in some of the scenes that I don't like in this film. The directors, so that we've got 2 directors for this film. So we've got Appie Boudellah, 6 directing credits. They're all in Dutch. And this came out in 2021. We're in 2025 now when this comes out. 4 films since then, so been very, very busy. And two of these are Netflix original films too. One's called F, like as in the swear word, Love 2, and the other one is The Wonder Weeks. So we will probably get to those films eventually, and the co-director, Armin van der Rest, has a few more directing credits, 18 altogether, but looks like has worked on the same Netflix film that I mentioned with Appie, so working together, as well as another 3 directing credits too, so both very, very busy, very, very busy in what they do, obviously. Time to talk about some scenes. What are some scenes that stood out? What were some scenes that didn't work in this film? There are a couple of things that worked okay for me. So Estelle, there's a moment where I mentioned before she hooks in with this John guy. They're happily in love. They buy a dog together, and there's one stage where the dog knocks over this vase of ashes, and we find out that these ashes are of John's deceased ex-wife, and the dog urinates in them. That was sort of funny. Lottie starts doing in her career, she magically drops into this, rocks up to work, and the person who's meant to present on air isn't there, so she steps in and does all these live crosses, and people start enjoying her work on air. I thought some of these were cute. The best one is where, think about those breakfast television shows where they cut to the weather person who's out, with the people doing random things, and there's one where she's at a farm and she's doing milking a cow session, and then someone's like, "That's not a cow, that's a steer," and they're like, "You milked cum." That made me laugh. That was funny. Guzley, this lady who is sort of struggling with the romantic side with her long-term husband. She's sort of spicing things up for him, and she's like, the kids are out. We've got the place to herself. She's dancing all sexily, and she falls over onto this Lego rocket that gets stuck in her bottom, and the ambos have to come. She has to go to hospital. That was funny. And also Alex and Lottie, they go out for dinner, and this is them trying to rekindle their relationship, and they kiss, and as they kiss, she sees Chris's face while she's kissing him. I thought that was a little bit funny, but also, yes, we worked out she likes him. That's quite obvious. Alright, here's a bit of a rant. Some things that didn't work in this one. There are a few things. The whole narrative structure of this film, the retelling of this story to a random stranger on a park bench was just not needed. We didn't need the flashbacks and to keep checking in with where they're at. Just tell this story in order. It didn't make sense why they did that. These dream or imagination sequences. The first one, it's right at the start of the film where Lottie has her dream proposal of people breaking out in dance in the middle of the street with her boyfriend on a horse. This was a horrible scene, let alone it being a dream sequence. And then this dream-like thing is done multiple more times. By the time you get to the end of the film, you're like, why are they still persisting with this? Maybe once or twice in a film is fine, but I think it was like 4 or 5 times this happened. This 10-minute setup at the start of all the friends of Lottie that I spoke about before, I couldn't care less about any of them, and they don't. This segment didn't actually add anything to the film. You could have learnt about these characters as the film went, instead of, I think, their names flashed on the screen as we got this breakdown of who they were. Didn't like that. in this television world, they create this weight loss TV show called, I think they were referring to the people as fatzos, and the TV show was called Fatties. And to me, that's disgusting for a film in 2021. Especially, there's one of the scenes where they're filming this TV show, and it involves having a woman on the scales weighing herself, telling her how disappointed they are with her weight. And they play this alarm and siren goes off, yelling fatties at her. I just thought that was gross. I thought it was really gross. There's a scene, this is just random, there's a scene where Lottie is getting dressed. She's getting changed, she's putting her pants on, and there's this big close-up of her butt in sexy undies. Like, what for? Did not need to be there. Lottie's relationship it's over. So yeah, it's over at this stage in the film. So I was just trying to think when it was. So it's over. She's been dumped by Alex, so she's staying with her sister for support, and her sister is like, "Cool, I'm going out for the night." And her line to her as she's walking out the door, because obviously Lottie's a little bit upset that she's been dumped, and her sister's line is, "Please don't commit suicide." What sort of a line is that? Horrendous. Estelle asks her best friend to help her with the wedding. So Kim, she's like, Kim, I want you to help me organise the wedding. Lottie's sitting there at this dinner party, really upset that her sister hasn't asked her. She breaks into one of those dream things where she beats her sister up, but obviously doesn't really, because it's a dream. And then she goes to work the next day, and Fritz annoys her, and she beats him up too, but that's a dream too. It's like everything's this little dream imagination sequence. Really, really poor. Just the obvious signs, I guess, of Chris falling for Lottie. Like, Alex is dancing with her, and he's just standing there watching. And this random guy on the bench that we keep checking in with as Lottie's telling the story, it makes a line. I think it's like, are you blind? Even Stevie Wonder knows that Chris is interested. Like, just come on. This is a film. These are some poor lines. The whole bachelorette party. So they organise this party where all the girls go to celebrate that Estelle's about to get married, and they go out on this boat with these strippers, and it's like, here's some motion sickness, seasickness pills. It was so obvious that they were going to be drugs. And then the party they have because they're on drugs was boring itself. It was just really lame. It wasn't fun. Fritz, that gross guy I was talking about, he walks into the office and he talks about how horny he was from the weekend for these non-existent Tinder dates that he describes. Random and gross. And Lottie runs to Chris before he leaves for New York to sort of tell him that she loves him and kisses him. And then guess what? It was another dream. I couldn't believe it. Ridiculous. All right, what's this film trying to say? What are some themes, some ideas, some motifs? Love it's a love story. So love the idea that there is really someone out there for everyone, even if it can be hard to find at times. And that other side too, that cheaters, they really suck. And that idea that you make men want what they can't have. I'm not sure that's a great motto. Family, we say sisters, that sort of their relationship breaks down, but family should be there for each other properly all the time, not just through the lens of social media or doing it because you think it's the right thing to do. And stand up for yourself too. Do the right thing. Stand up for yourself and what you believe in. What did I take away from this film? I'm not sure if this is just because this is an international film and I'm watching the film and the dialogue in a foreign language that I don't understand. So I'm reading the subtitles, but the soundtrack, the songs they picked in this film were all in English. And the songs, they're not English songs that I know, but the lyrics all matched what was happening in the scene, which made the song seem so lame. Like lyrics about not falling for you, and a song that was about thinking of you and me. It just felt so gimmicky. I don't know, maybe that's just a random little thing for me. Some questions, some pondering, some ideas, some thoughts. The lead protagonist in this film, Lottie, she's female. How empowering would it be for her to have worked out for herself that the love of her life in this film was useless? Instead, they use this male to do it for her. I just thought that was a bit of a letdown and something that probably could have been worked on when they were working on the screenplay for this. And the other sort of thing, I guess, there's this big reveal of why Lottie is in the dress that she's sitting, the wedding dress, that she's sitting in this park telling a story to some random guy. And it's because she spilt red wine on it. So we get this reveal, she spilt red wine on it, that's why she's run away, that's why she's in the park, in this wedding dress, all upset, and then they quickly cut back to her on the bench where she's telling the story, and the red wine stain is nowhere to be seen. I just thought that was, especially after you show how she got the dress and why she's wearing the dress, I thought it'd be really important to actually connect that shot up with the following shot of what she's wearing. I just thought that was really bad. Anyway, I'm ready to wrap this one up. We give the films a rating out of 5 on this show. For me, it's hard to recommend anything about this one, unfortunately. Obviously, if you've listened to any of these shows, this isn't my favourite genre of film anyway, but I can still acknowledge good efforts when they're done, or good performances. Unfortunately, there isn't really much of a good effort in this at all. This is a 1.5 out of 5 for me. Pretty low, unfortunately. We are on socials. We're on Twitter, or now known as X, formerly known as Twitter. We're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook. The question that I wanted to put out in relation to this episode was, have you ever sat on a park bench and talked to a stranger before? I haven't, and I feel like a lot of films play on this, especially films in New York and around Central Park and those sorts of ideas that, sit up, talk to a random stranger on a park bench. I don't know. I found that a whole weird setup of this film. It wasn't needed. I said this at the start. It was not needed. We did not need her to tell the whole story to some random. We could have just seen it play out in the film. That would have been much more effective. All right, we are back next week. Next week we do have another international film. This one again, it's from 2021, but this one's a French one. It's a biographical film called Madame Claude, and it's directed by Sylvie Verheide and stars Carol Rocher. Interesting. Let's give that one a watch. In the next week. Hopefully you can give it a watch. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for listening. I will see you next week.